It's the Growing for Market podcast.
We were a big supplier of chrysanthemums, and that's why I feel so important. I feel like it's so important to keep these old varieties alive and keep sharing them because so many people don't even know about them. And they're a great way to extend your season for any grower, to just keep your customers coming back for more and not let them not be done in the fall when you first frost hits. I mean, that's so devastating in general because you're like, okay, well, the money stream's gone there. You want to keep on going. And these mums are fantastic. So that's why I'm very passionate about keeping these mums alive and getting them to so many people so that we can compete with the new varieties that are coming in to the country. And, we need to be prepared when they do come in. We need to have a show of, a force here of local American growers that, hey, we can hang with the big boys from overseas.
Hello, and welcome to the Growing for Market podcast, where we talk about growing, marketing, and the business of growing flowers and vegetables for local markets. I'm Andrew Mefford, your host and the editor of Growing for Market magazine, proudly celebrating 35 years in 2026 as the magazine by and for vegetable and flower market farmers. If you're enjoying the podcast, just wait till you see the magazine. Go to growingformarket.com for more. Also, if you could give us a follow and a rating, it really helps other like-minded people find the podcast. And now, let's take a minute to hear from our sponsors. It's with their generous support that we can bring you the podcast for free. A well-built high tunnel is one of the smartest investments a small farm can make. It protects your crops, extends your season, and keeps income rolling in even through winter. Nifty Hoops builds complete Gothic high tunnels that are easy to install and built to last. Their easy, bolt-together construction makes setup straightforward and efficient, whether it's a small backyard hoop house or a dozen large production-scale high tunnels. Especially through their community build option, where professional builders work alongside your crew, family, or neighbors to build each structure, usually in a single day. Most growers go with Nifty's full setup: steel-framed end walls, roll-up sides, baseboards, double plastic with inflation, automated vents, and real doors, all priced to make the best choice the easy one. Nifty is a small crew out of Michigan using U.S. steel and working hands-on with growers across the country. They'll help evaluate your site, handle NRCS paperwork, and if they're building with you, they'll even float your cost share until after the build. Visit niftyhoops.com to learn more. Farm more seasons. Grow more food. Nifty Hoops. Farmers who partnered with Farmhand grew an average of 63% this year because it's more than software. Farmhand acts as your business coach and assistant, helping you sell out, save time, and grow smarter. From marketing to fulfillment to customer support, Farmhand pulls real data from what's worked and what hasn't for other farms and turns it into websites that convert, campaigns that sell, and fulfillment systems that give you your time back. Curious what that looks like? Meet the founder, Ari, at farmhand.partners/GFM and see the same insights and support the fastest growing farms rely on every week. That's farmhand.partners/GFM. Today, we have the pleasure of welcoming Kate Dagnal to the Growing for Market podcast. Kate and her family have run Goose Creek Gardens in Cowansville, Pennsylvania, about an hour north of Pittsburgh for over 20 years. In addition to growing cut flowers, they also sell dahlia tubers and rooted heirloom chrysanthemum cuttings. And though the farm is now entirely in flowers, it wasn't always that way. But you don't want to hear about that from me. So without further ado, welcome to the Growing for Market podcast, Kate.
Hi, thanks so much for having me today. I'm really excited to share everything we have about Goose Creek Gardens.
Oh, cool. Well, I'm excited to hear about it. Well, can you tell us what you grow at Goose Creek Gardens today and a bit about the history of the farm?
Sure. Goose Creek Gardens was thought up by my mom over 25 years now. And she worked a corporate job, hated it, and wanted to do something, for herself, wanted to be her own boss, wanted to be with my brother and I growing up and raise her children and have a family business. We come from a long line of entrepreneurs And that's really exciting. And she just wanted to keep that going. And I've kept it going as well. So we started out in our backyard many, many years ago when I was about 11 years old, and I remember coming home from school and watering all the plants on the back porch and getting ready for markets and doing farmers markets. And we started out with culinary herbs and salad greens, and we grew that for many, many years. We worked with restaurants, we did farmers markets 5 nights a week. We grew on 2 acres, high tunnels, outdoor growing. We grew product year-round, harvested from February to November. So we were intense. It was intense growing. And as a young child, sitting at the farmers markets, watching people buy their produce and super happy to buy local fresh produce for their family, but they got a real spark out of buying local flowers. And I saw that as a young child. And they always bought them last. That was okay with me. And I just knew that that's what I wanted to grow. So when I was 14, I started growing cut flowers and selling them at farmers markets. Of course, I had no idea what I was doing. And it just snowballed from there. And once I got married, started having children, I couldn't help with the farm the way I used to be able to help with the farm. And we stopped growing food. It just was a natural progression. We stopped growing food. We stopped working with restaurants and doing all of our farmers markets. And we started growing solely cut flowers. And we dove 100% in. We had a bucket truck. We didn't know how to start with, florists, but we had a bucket truck. And my dad created a delivery route and quickly became this amazing, we were selling flowers. We had florists we were working with. I did a few weddings, quickly found out I did not like doing weddings. That's not my thing.
It's a special thing.
It is. And it's not for me. I let the other people do that. I will grow the flowers. Perfectly fine. So we moved. We moved our farm. We moved the business. We moved my parents' family. We moved my growing family to a farm in Cowansville where we have been now for 9 years. And it was a big change. We bought a large rest home. So all 8 of us live there now on a 12-acre farm. We have 3 large high tunnels, 6 small high tunnels, and about 5 acres in production. And it's all cut flowers. When we moved up here, we still continued our bucket truck run, even though we were an hour and a half away from our customers. It was intense. We had to do it. And then COVID hit. We lost all of our florists. They lost their work. We lost our customer base. Thankfully, the fall prior, a local grocery store chain reached out to us via Instagram. So you never know who's watching. So you just want to keep putting stuff out there. So they approached us and we had a meeting with them 2 weeks before the country shut down in March. It was amazing. So now we work with that grocery store. We are in 14 grocery stores with them weekly throughout the season. We produce around 10,000 bouquets or more a season for them. And that's mostly where our product goes, strictly bouquet work for this grocery store. And we do have a small little self-serve stand at the farm, and that's purely just for my community so that they can also enjoy our locally grown, beautiful, long-lasting cut flowers.
Wow, that sounds like amazing timing that you were able to get connected with them right before the pandemic really shut everything down. Okay, so that's a lot of bouquets. So you're moving a lot of bouquets through the grocery stores.
Yeah, and it's been amazing. I always wanted to do bouquet work because I like growing. Enjoy growing high volume, a lot of one thing. And I want to grow everything, but I know I can't grow everything because I've tried to do that before. It doesn't work. So we've really streamlined it. And we have employees now year round, which, I've worked really hard to have our employees year round, and it keeps growing and it keeps challenging me every year. And I really like that because I get bored really fast with things and I need to keep moving on.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I wanted to ask what your climate is like there, because I'm actually very familiar with Pennsylvania. We originally started our farm in Pennsylvania. Love Pennsylvania. My dad's whole side of the family is from Pennsylvania. In fact, you may know we're up here in Maine now, but we originally started our farm on some family land in Shade Gap, Pennsylvania, which is very south central, like 45 minutes away from the border with Maryland. Long story, didn't work out there. Obviously, that's why we're up here in Maine, but I'm still very fond of Pennsylvania. And I'm just curious, just for people out there listening, if you could just tell us quick what your climate is like so they know what you're growing in.
Sure. So we are in Western Pennsylvania. So we're an hour north of Pittsburgh, and we are in zone 6A, I believe. So we're cold. My first frost date in the fall is always like October 9th. We get a killing frost, which is pretty early compared to a lot of people like around us. Pittsburgh, I know they don't get it until like the 20th or even into November, because I'll have customers reach out and go, "Hey, don't you still have this?" And I'm like, "We're done with outside stuff." We have a last frost date of May 20th in the spring. So actually, I had snow and a freeze in June this year. So you never know what we're going to get. And we're kind of in this little microclimate where our farm is. We're very high up on the mountain where we are in Armstrong County. And we just get cold. So that's why we have our high tunnels and stuff. You know, it does get hot here in the summer. We're in the 90s and it's humid. So humid. You know, you feel like you're walking through soup sometimes.
Yeah, you got that mid-Atlantic humidity. All right, well that does explain all the hoop houses. I know actually when we were farming in Pennsylvania, our markets were in the Washington D.C. area, and we were like, oh, how are we going to compete with all these people who are warmer than us? And so we were like, oh, we'll be the brassica people. So that ended when we had to leave Pennsylvania, but there's always opportunities. Actually, speaking of opportunities, you told us where a lot of your flowers are going. As far as the cut flowers, all those flowers you're selling to the grocery store, can you tell us what like the main flower crops that you grow are then?
Sure. So we start out in the spring. I try to hit the grocery stores mid-April. Now we do have flowers for Easter at our little flower shack on the farm, but we just don't have the volume yet for the grocery store. So we do anemones, ranunculus, tulips. We grow a lot of tulips inside and outside. So I have them for a longer period of time, which is great. We do a lot of stock, snapdragons for spring flowers. And I also like the irises, Dutch irises. Those are a great flower that you can grow inside, outside. You can program them. They're great, and they're not super expensive, and they hold up really well. And then for summer production, we do a lot of marigolds, zinnias. Sunflowers are huge for us. We direct seed sunflowers, 10,000 seeds every week. We do it every 7 days. And we're putting them in bouquets. We sell straight bunches of them as well to the grocery stores, which is really nice. We do straight bunches. If we have an abundance of a crop, they'll take pretty much anything that we have, which is amazing.
Yeah, that's that's a dream. That's great.
Yeah, it's amazing. So we do a lot of, let me think. We do celosia, amaranth. I love amaranth for our bouquets. And then in the fall, we have dahlias, the mahogany splendor hibiscus, one of my favorite filler flowers, again, marigolds, and then we move into our fall crops, which are the heirloom chrysanthemums, cabbage. Again, we do marigolds and celosia plantings in the fall for that so that we can keep cruising with our bouquets as long as we can. I also like the scoop and focal scoop scabiosa for bouquets. It's a nice addition, makes them look a little bit more elegant, makes our bouquets stand out. Again, they last a long time. And we also do salvia leucantha for the fall as well.
Oh, cool. Okay. What kind of a crew do you have? I mean, the volume of bouquets plus all the rooted chrysanthemums and everything. I mean, like, how big of a crew do you have making all this happen?
So we have an amazing crew, and I love all of them. And actually, it's an all-women's crew, not because we don't want men working here. We just have not had men apply. which I find interesting because, they think of flowers and maybe they don't think it's man's work. I know that might sound silly, but we just have only had women apply. And so we have 3 full-time people year round, and they're amazing. I have 2 to 3, depending on the season, of part-time people. I have 1 college student that comes. So we're pretty a small crew, and we kick butt every single day.
It sounds like it. Yeah, honestly, I was thinking you were going to say more people than that. So yeah, it sounds like you guys must be very efficient. Sounds like you get a lot done with not really that many people, but that's great.
Yeah, we've created a lot of systems and I've learned a lot. So lots of trials and lots of failing, but that's how you learn. You just keep moving and grooving and keep going.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, well, one thing that I want to make sure and focus on in this interview is the heirloom chrysanthemum rooted cuttings, because that's not something I hear of everyone doing. So first of all, though, I think I know the answer, but what is an heirloom chrysanthemum?
So as far as I know, an heirloom chrysanthemum is an older variety that does not have a patent on it. That way we are able to take cuttings from the mother plants without, having an infringement on it and having to pay the patent holder. These are older varieties. They're over 30 to 50 years old. These would be something your grandmother would have had or your great-grandmothers would have had in their garden. Or my mother always talks about the old football mums when her mother would go to a football game and my grandfather would get her a big corsage of a football mum, and the ladies would wear them to the football games. That's why I think they're called football mums. I could be wrong, but it would make sense. So they're older varieties that have just been cultivated and kept going for many, many years.
Okay, that's what I thought. In fact, we had a really nice article about chrysanthemums. I think it was back in 2023 by Rebecca Kutzer-Rice of Moonshot Farm, who's in not that far away from you in New Jersey. So we will go ahead and share that in the show notes of this article. It'd be a nice compliment if people want some maybe more tips, because I really want to talk about the cuttings with you. And then, the article is more about the growing of the flowers themselves. But in that article, she talks about how there are import restrictions on chrysanthemums into the United States right now. So my understanding is those are still going on, and that there's like a lot of new non-heirloom chrysanthemums that have been bred that are available, say, in Europe and in other countries, but haven't, like, there's this whole chrysanthemum breeding world that is not available to us in the USA right now because of import restrictions. So I did hear they're talking about trying to change that so we'd also be able to import some new ones. But so basically you're keeping the varieties alive that we have access to in the United States. And now let's take a minute to hear from our sponsors. It's with their generous support that we can bring you the podcast for free. This episode is brought to you by Tend, the all-in-one AI-powered farm management platform trusted by modern growers. Whether you're growing vegetables, flowers, or fruit, or managing a nursery, greenhouse, or vineyard, you know how much time gets lost in planning, tracking, and staying organized. Tend helps you cut through the busy work so you can focus on growing and selling what matters. With Tend, you can plan your crops, assign and track tasks, manage inventory, and handle your sales and accounting all in one smart, easy-to-use platform. Whether you run a 1-acre farm or manage a large operation, Tend adapts to your scale and style, supporting everything from manual labor to fully mechanized workflows. Try it for free at tend.com. No credit card required. That's TEND.com. Streamline your season and grow with confidence. So you got your soil tested, or you need your soil tested. It's time to contact Ohio Earth Food. Since 1972, they have been growers' trusted source for organic soil amendments to apply before you plant to prevent those deficiency symptoms that limit production. Their knowledgeable staff have all been a part of certified organic operations and can help you choose the best products for your soil and deliver or ship them right to your farm. With locations in Northwest Ohio and just north of Madison, Wisconsin, Ohio Earth Food wants to be your partner for organic inputs. Don't count on luck this year. Start your seeds in the Seed Catapult potting soil and put their Revita fertilizers in your beds, and rest assured that your plants will have all the nutrients, stimulants, and energy for whatever comes their way. Feed your soil and let your soil feed the plants. Visit them at ohioearthfood.com. And now, back to the show. My understanding is that chrysanthemums used to fill in the gap for late season flowers after field flowers had died because they naturally bloom late in this season and can be grown in greenhouses, but that chrysanthemum cultivation declined when the U.S. market became flooded with cheap imported flowers from outside the country. And it seems like those heirloom chrysanthemums seem to be getting more popular again. I don't know if you call it a comeback, but is that accurate? Do you think like maybe one of the reasons chrysanthemums, if they did get less popular, was because they were like imported flowers that kind of like took that late season slot away from chrysanthemums?
Yeah, so it's interesting to see the decline of, heirloom or the chrysanthemum industry in the United States in general. It has, in the 80s, on the war on drugs, it moved a lot of the cut flower production from this country to South America. It did. And actually in Pennsylvania, Pittsburgh Cut, they had greenhouses. I want to say they were one of the number one or one of the largest chrysanthemum producers on the East Coast. And that was right here in Western Pennsylvania. And since the production was moved south, those greenhouses have been torn down years ago, which was such a shame. So where I'm actually growing, we were a big supplier of chrysanthemums. And that's why I feel so important. I feel like it's so important to keep these old varieties alive and keep sharing them, because so many people don't even know about them. And they're a great way to extend your season for any grower, to just keep your customers coming back for more and not let them not be done in the fall when you first frost hits. I mean, that's so devastating in general, because you're like, okay, well, the money strain's gone there. You want to keep on going. And these mums are fantastic. So that's why I'm very passionate about keeping these mums alive and getting them to so many people so that we can compete with the new varieties that are coming in to the country. And, we need to be prepared when they do come in. We need to have a show of, a force here of local American growers that, hey, we can hang with the big boys from overseas.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm thinking that chrysanthemums could be a particularly important crop for local growers just because they can provide late season blooms. And the deal with chrysanthemums is they're pretty cold hardy, but it's the petals themselves, like the buds, are more susceptible. So can you tell me how you handle it, or how growers should handle it, like frost protection heading into the latter part of the season? Because they can be a great resource for local growers as far as that, like giving them that late. But what do growers have to do to make sure the blooms make it to market in good shape?
Sure. So in our area, for us, we grow them all in unheated high tunnels. So we're not putting any extra money into them with propane, because propane is expensive. At least for the growing of the flowers. And we grow them. We have frost covers that we can put on, but that's not necessarily what we do. We're pretty warm up until enough with the high tunnel protection that they don't need any additional protection from the cold. If we do have cold nights coming, like say in the teens, we do have, and this is silly, we have patio heaters, propane patio heaters that we'll put in the center of the high tunnel, and we'll put it on low around 5 o'clock in the morning. I'll go out there in my jammies and I'll get in the high tunnel and I'll turn it on low, because that's when it gets the coldest. And we just want to protect the flowers. Like you said, the petals are the most susceptible to the cold, because, if they get frosted, they're going to turn brown, and it's only going to be a few of them in the bloom, and then that whole bloom is wasted. So we just make sure that the temperature is just above freezing. That's all we're going for. And then we'll turn the heaters off around 8 o'clock in the morning if the temperature's risen enough. So it's only 3 hours. It's only 3 hours that we're running heat in there on low. And then I'll roll up the sides to vent the whole greenhouse, and then we'll go in and we'll harvest what we need. And we found that that is better than putting frost blankets on them, because the problem with frost blankets is if that blanket hits the mum bloom, it's going to destroy it. It's just not going to work. So you have to have, I mean, I've done it. You have to have the tall fence posts, with the tennis ball on top of them, or wires, so you can get the frost blanket over without touching, because these plants get tall. They get really tall. So it's just, we found that it was easier just to put a heater in there, and we just have the propane, the patio heater, which you can use whatever heater you want, just enough to keep them just above freezing, and they're totally fine. The plants don't care if they get cold. They are great. It's the blooms that we're trying to protect. The plants, I've seen them frozen and they're totally fine. They just bounce right back.
Okay, cool. And by patio heaters, you mean those like real tall heaters that you see at outdoor restaurants?
Yeah.
I figured that's what you meant. I just wanted to make sure. Okay, that's cool. That's an idea there for people. And so, like, all chrysanthemums are late bloomers, right? Like can you like roughly tell us in your climate with unheated tunnels, like, when is your chrysanthemum bloom season? I realize we're talking like a whole bunch of varieties. So like, when does chrysanthemum season start and end for you there in PA?
Sure. For us in the unheated space, we have them starting mid-September, going all the way through mid-November. And we do have varieties that are early bloomers that I could grow outside in the field, no problem. They bloom before the frost. We would be able to harvest, get a lot out of them, and not worry about, them being damaged by frost. But as right now, I put everything in the high tunnel just because I don't want to risk losing anything. And just having that added protection just makes the flowers grown in high tunnels so much better, I think, than out in the field, because they don't have to, do from the weather. You can just protect them a little bit.
Yeah.
So we're looking at September, mid-September through mid-November. I had some bloom this year on Thanksgiving, actually. They just were like, okay, I'm ready. Here we are. And they're light sensitive, so that's why they bloom in the fall. They need the different hours of light. They need dark. I don't know exactly how many hours it is of light and dark, but I know that that's what triggers them to bloom.
Oh, right. Yeah. Okay, so in theory, people could do some light deprivation, make the day shorter, and make them bloom earlier. Actually, I have a podcast interview scheduled that I haven't done yet with a grower in Texas who told me they've done this. So stay tuned, folks. Well, probably actually the week or 2 weeks after your interview comes out, we will have an interview with someone who's doing that as far to get earlier chrysanthemums. But I know, like, actually another question I had for you was how late you can plant them and still get a crop, because I've heard that some people will plug chrysanthemums in where they've had a really early crop, like they'll have one of their earliest flower crops of the year, take it out, and then put chrysanthemums in to be able to get two crops out of one bed space over the course of the year. So do you have any idea how late you can possibly plant chrysanthemums and still get a crop that same year?
Oh, I do. This year, our schedule got thrown off quite a bit. Exactly what you said. Traditionally, what I like to do is when our anemones ranunculus get moved, the heirloom chrysanthemums, the plugs get put right in. So we're talking end of May, beginning of June. By the end of June is when I like to have all of my mums in. It's perfect. It works. You get a great harvest out of them. However, this year, because our schedules didn't work, I planted them the end of August, mid-August to the end of August, right? And these mums still bloomed on time. They did great. It was amazing. I always say mums will grow. They have a will to grow. They want to bloom. They're gonna grow despite what lack of care you might give them. Because sometimes it happens. So this year it was later. I don't necessarily recommend it, but I know if you plant them in August, it does work.
Don't recommend, but have done. Okay. Well, I'm sorry your schedule got thrown off, but that was a very interesting experiment. Because I had heard like people planting chrysanthemums until like sometime in June or something like that. So to go until August is a full like 2 months later than I've really heard for most places. That's amazing. So were they just like really root bound? Like if you were, I mean, I assume you're planning on planting them for June or something like that. So did they just been holding and were like just growing roots and put them in the ground in August for 2 more months, put them in the ground, and did they look pretty similar to what you would have expected if you had planted them in June? Like, it doesn't sound like they suffered that much for being held for that long.
They didn't. They didn't suffer. Yeah, so they were just in 128 count trays, way longer than I would have liked them. But I mean, look, I've killed more plants than I want to, admit in my farming career. But we want the hardy ones. We want the ones that take abuse, and mums really are hardy. Okay. They do great. So they were root bound. We kept fertilizing them. We kept caring for them the same way we would. We finally got them in the ground. They were a little shorter, but they were long enough for bouquets. I mean, they were still 2-foot stems. I mean, we're still talking 18 to 24-inch stems, right? Perfect for bouquets. We got multiple stems from each plant. So for planting them late, they were totally fine. Now, if I was planting them and I did my schedule correctly and we got everything in on time, June, we would have trimmed them. We would have cut them, fertilized them, did all the correct things, and we would have gotten more off of each plant. Now, certain varieties, it done properly, like I have in the past, I've gotten 30 stems off of one rooted cutting. That's amazing. Okay.
That is amazing.
It's amazing, right? These produce so much. And as for our bouquet work, that's perfect. That's a productive plant. So they grow tall. We do net them. We have to give them a lot of support. But just like any plant, any crop you put the effort in, it's going to reward you. And these reward you in a great way.
Yeah, it sounds like it. Yeah, I'm starting to see why chrysanthemums are having a revival if they ever did get less popular. So what kind of feeders are they? Like, are they heavy feeders? And I've heard the advice to, if you're fertigating or side dressing or something like that, to fertilize until they start to bud. Is that good advice?
Yeah. Yeah. So that's what we do. They are heavy feeders, and I give them a triple 19 like almost every week if I'm doing it right. And they will just keep growing. And we do watch to make sure when the buds start to form, we pull back on the fertilizer because they've already gotten all the nutrients they need. They're already producing and focusing on the bud. We don't want to have them focus on growth of vegetation. We want them to focus on the flower. So we pull back and we stop fertilizing them when they get their buds. But yeah, they are heavy feeders, and I don't think you can overfeed them. They need a lot of food. But, again, I haven't fed them certain years, and they do fine too. So.
Okay. Yeah, but like you said, they're big plants. So I imagine, like they probably can take, like if you can fertilize them a lot, sounds like they'll take it and be very happy with that. So. All right, so looking at your website, trying to do my homework for this interview, you sell a lot of varieties of heirloom chrysanthemums. So am I correct that they're all varieties that are for cutting and not the potted chrysanthemums that people may be familiar with at garden centers?
Right. So all the varieties that we have grown specifically for cut flowers. These are not what you're going to find at the big box stores, the grocery stores, the garden centers in the fall. They're completely different. Again, those are patented varieties. The ones that I have are not patented. And those are kind of, I call them throwaway mums, because you buy them, even if you plant them, they're not in the ground long enough at that time of year to set their roots, and they're not going to last. They're just kind of there to be pretty, essentially. The ones we grow, they all produce long stems. I mean, some of them, I had one reach 6 feet this year. 6 feet tall. It was huge. And again, now I have to say, this was one in my greenhouse. I left a pot I had one, it was called Jefferson Park. I left it in the greenhouse one of my mother plants, because I just wanted to see what it did. So I left it in the corner. We kept fertilizing it. We kept watering and cared for it how we would. And it got 6 feet tall in a mum pot. So they have a shallow root system. Okay, and it bloomed, and it was gorgeous. The blooms were 4 and 5 inches across. It was gorgeous. It was lovely. So these varieties get tall. That's why we pinch them, and so that we keep them shorter. Even pinching them, they're still going to get 4 feet tall. But yes, they are completely different than the ones you would see at the garden centers in the fall, to answer your question.
Okay, so people can cut anything that they're ordering from you, or like for cut flowers. And I gotta say, the range, like, first of all, you have so many varieties and they're beautiful. Like, just the range, there's like, it was fun for me to look at your pictures on your website, because there's everything from sort of like, I want to call them ball types, these types that are almost like a starburst. I'm not even sure what to call them. Like, do you know off the top of your head how many varieties you're selling?
So I believe we have 50 individual varieties that we have for sale. And then I have collections. I have curated collections from timing. So we have an early blooming collection. If you want to just try them and you don't have a high tunnel, that's a great collection to put out in your garden. And those bloom early. Then I have the mid blooming collections, and those need just a little protection, but yet can still bloom without a high tunnel. I haven't done a late blooming collection yet. It's on the works. But I do also have collections that are based on the style of mums. So we have a pon collection, which are nice, tiny spray style mums. So they have a lot of petals real close. We have an anemone style collection. We have a decorative, an incurve, a regular incurve collection. We have a spider collection, a spoon collection. So these are all different types of mums, and they're all beautiful. That's what I love about them. They're all so different, and they're just so unique. You're not going to find these at, your local grocery store, unless you go to the grocery stores we supply. But it sets you apart as a flower grower. These flowers are going to set you apart from just a field grower where, the farmer puts in zinnias, sunflowers, amaranth and celosia just for the summer. These are going to set your farm apart, and that's why I love them. And I have more varieties that I have been growing out, because I like to grow them out for a year or two to see if we like them, to see how hardy they are, to see if they work in bouquets, because that's our specialty. So we have around 75 to 100 varieties actually on the farm, because if I'm going to do something, I'm going to go big. And we grow a lot of dahlia tubers, and when we started growing dahlias, I wanted all of them. So we have a collection of over 100, and might as well do that with mums too. So now we have a large collection, which I've been collecting them for over 10 years and caring for them and adding new ones each year and trying them out, and then hopefully adding them to the website year after year so that we have new inventory for customers to keep coming back to us. And you can't have too many flowers.
No, that's true. And I didn't go through the ordering process on your website. Can you tell us a bit about like what the time frame for orders, and do you sell them by the flat? Like, probably not the collections like you were saying, but can you just quickly like talk a bit about like if someone wanted to order from you, what are the like time frames, minimums? What are the ordering details?
Sure. So I try to make it super simple, and I try to make it easy for anyone, a gardener, all the way up to a big flower farmer. So our minimum is $35. It's not that much, but that's what it is. And we have that $35 for dahlias and chrysanthemums. For the chrysanthemums, you get, I believe I can't remember. I think it's two mum cuttings for $15.50, I believe. And then 4 cuttings is for $25. And then several of them you can order more. And all you got to do is click the drop down button, and some varieties that are very productive, you can order more. And so you just select the ones you want, go in and go ahead and check out. Now, all of our mums are shipped in April. I haven't figured out how to ship in May, only because our farm is so intense with planting out and working the fields. we just haven't incorporated May shipping to our schedule, because when we are shipping chrysanthemums, it takes us about 2.5 weeks to ship all of our orders out, and we are working 8 hours a day getting these orders out, and it's intense. My packing room becomes the shipping room. So everything's shipped in April, and that we go all to the lower 48 states, and we are inspected by the PA Department of Ag. So we have an inspector come out twice a year, and she is looking for any disease, anything wrong with them, especially the white chrysanthemum rust. She is looking for that, and she's never found it on our farm, thankfully. And I'm very careful who I buy in from. When we get new stuff, we keep everything isolated away from it, all of our stock plants. So they're inspected while they're growing in the fall, and then they're inspected before they are shipped out as rooted cuttings. And then some, because we are in a zone with the Japanese beetle, we're in a state with that, we have to send washed cuttings. So they're bare root cuttings. We have to wash off all of the potting mix from the roots to certain states. So essentially, everybody west of the Mississippi River all gets bare root cuttings, so that it's a little bit more involved for us to ship them. So because we have to wash off all the soil and package them really carefully. So we want to make sure our customers who are buying, especially California, there's some growers that cannot ship to California because of the regulations, and we've worked with our inspector to make sure that we can ship to California, but they're bare root cuttings. I try to make the ordering process really easy, and if you have any questions, you can just always email me.
Okay. And is that to prevent a pathogen or something that would be?
Yeah, it's to prevent the Japanese beetle, the little bug, the borer.
The larvae or something?
Yeah.
Okay.
Even though they're grown in a greenhouse, they're protected. The state still says you have to wash them. You can't send any soil. So, and even though it's commercial grade potting mix, they say nope.
Yeah.
So our inspector is making sure that everything is soilless, going to the correct states. So I've learned so much about shipping plants across state lines. It's insane.
Yeah, it's a lot. And that's interesting. Not only did I not realize they didn't have Japanese beetles west of the Mississippi, but I also didn't realize that's how they got around in soil, and that there was a danger of them spreading.
Yeah.
Because I've actually worked on farms on the West Coast, and I guess it just didn't. There was plenty of other pests and diseases. I didn't register that there were no Japanese beetles. So
yeah. Now some states do have them west, and it's like we have a big map in our packing room, and they're different color coded, and we're like, okay, these have to be washed, these don't have to be washed, these can, and so we're very careful. And some even need the phytosanitary, and our state does phytosanitary inspections for free, which is amazing. Some states don't, and you have to pay for that. So we're thankful that our state, as of right now, still does the phytosanitary as part of the PA Department of Ag inspections, and we don't have to have an additional cost to send over to our customers.
Yeah, that's great, especially since you already have that additional cost of washing of bare rooting them for, like, I don't know, roughly half the states, it sounds like. So I'm glad you can get the phytosanitary, which is, so, I mean, if people aren't familiar with that, it's the paperwork to say that the plant material is free of diseases to cross state lines or anything like that, which I guess, I mean, anything you're propagating vegetatively, it's more likely you can have virus build up, right, of anything, like potatoes. Like anything you're propagating vegetatively is more at a bit more of a risk than seed propagated things, because a lot of diseases don't make it through the seed stage. Is that like about right on the phytosanitary? I mean,
I would think so. And with the phytosanitary, our inspector actually inspects every single order that goes out. So we save all those and have them come on a special day, and then we have to have them look at every box, every plant before it even goes to those states. So, that's why I advocate, and I say all the time, you really have to know who you're ordering from, because we put a lot of effort. I've learned a lot. I've worked with a lot of people, a lot of the agencies, to make sure that we are producing and selling a healthy plant. And people ask us, are we inspected? Yeah, we are. And I can ship anywhere in the lower 48. But a lot of people, even with dahlia tubers, our dahlias are inspected. Our tubers are inspected. If our inspector comes out, she'll take samples and send it to the lab and always give us a report. And every time everything's come back totally clean. So it's really important on the customer's end to make sure they know who they're buying from, that they're reputable sources. I think that's because anybody could sell dahlia tubers. Anybody could do heirloom chrysanthemum rooted cuttings, right? But you just need to know where you're getting them from. So I always say that we're PA inspected, and we go from there.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, that should be a lot of peace of mind for your buyers too, because it's been a while now, but there was, maybe about a decade ago or so, there was a big problem with garlic bloat nematode in garlic. And basically, people were propagating garlic for sale, and I don't think they even realized that they had, it's like the kind of thing that was possible for people to not know that they had it and ship it off. It's basically like you're shipping nematodes everywhere after that. So I think something's been done. I'm not sure exactly what the regulations are on that now, but I mean, it's a real thing. We all want healthy planting stock, so that's just great that you guys, I'm sure it's extra paperwork and hoops to jump through, so thank you for doing all that to keep everyone's planting stock safe. Everyone's gonna be happy about that. It might be the kind of thing they don't say like, wow, I'm so happy my plants aren't diseased today, but they'll be happy when their plants aren't.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly.
All right. Well, I'm guessing those chrysanthemums take up some of your greenhouse space this time of year. Am I right about that? And what is the growing cycle like on the rooted heirloom chrysanthemums?
Sure. So right now we have totally cleared out our greenhouse. We only have one large heated space, so everything that we do is in there, and that's for all of our cutting, propagating, all of our field seed crops that all get planted out, so everything's sharing the same space. It's a gutter connect, 2 hoops, so we have one side as just the heirloom mums, and then the other side is everything else that we need to do. It's a really nice space. Happy to have it. And so each season will start from the fall. So the flowers have bloomed, and we've cut them down. We've used them all for the bouquets in our production. Right now, they're just sitting in the high tunnel, unheated high tunnel, resting, growing. They're still growing. They can grow in cool soil. They're not growing above the plastic because we grow them in biofilm to keep the weeds down and to keep our job a little easier than having to weed them all the time. So right now they're setting their new root stock for next year. So we're going to go in, we're going to dig up all of our varieties, and I'm a label Nazi. I just label everything. I'm like, okay, we need to label this, we need to label this, we need to label this. And we want to keep everything straight, because when they're all green, you don't know what varieties they are. So we're in there labeling and making sure if we don't know what this is, or if it's right on the edge, out it goes. We don't even keep it. So we're making sure all the varieties are straight and they get labeled correctly. And they get labeled 3 times in a pot, because you never know. So a cat might come in and eat, the label off. My kids might come in and be like, oh, what is this? This looks cool. They're a little beyond that stage, but when they were little, it was like labels were just going everywhere. Or you might brush up against it with your coat, because when in the winter, it's not super warm, but you still got your layers on, and a label might come off. So we label everything. So as they come out of the ground, we're getting new rootstock from this year's growth, what we used in our production. So we dig up all those mums, and now those are our mother plants. So we don't keep our mother plants from year to year. We only use the fresh rooted cuttings that have grown out in our high tunnels, and that's what we do. That's how we do it. I want fresh rootstock all the time. It's healthier, they're vigorous, they give us a lot of new growth, and that's what we want. So they'll get potted. Because they're small, they're not huge, we'll put 2 rootstock in 1 8-inch mum pot. So they're shallow pots. We put them in and we fill as many as we can, and we put them in. I think last year we had around 2,000 mum pots in our high tunnel with all of the varieties, because I like it. It depends. Certain varieties are more vigorous growers than others. So some varieties I only need 10 pots of mother plants, where other varieties that usually, and this is the way it works, usually the varieties that everybody wants are the most difficult to propagate. And I need a lot. I need upwards to 30 to 40 mother plants to make sure I have the volume that we need to produce. So they all go in our greenhouse on benches. We care for them all through January. My team is actually off right now for 2 weeks for Christmas and New Year's, which is great. They'll come back, we'll dig everything up, and we'll start potting them and getting them ready and growing for February. We'll start taking the cuttings, and they don't have to be that big. So we let them grow about 6 inches above. We cut it down, and usually we'll get 2 to 4 cuttings off of one stem because you can take them at each node. And then we put them all in a 128 count tray. And we do use a rooted hormone. We dip them and they root within 3 weeks. We keep them nice and moist all the time. We're misting them. We're making sure they don't dry out. And here's a trick I learned from another grower doing rooted cuttings or even starting seeds. Take a bottom tray from a flat and put it upside down, and it gives it just enough shade that it's not going to dry out when the sun comes out in February, because the sun in February can be intense and the greenhouse goes up, temperature wise, and you're not in there and you're like, oh crap, I got to go in there and water, So that's a trick that we put a bottom tray flipped over just on top, and it gives it enough shade that it protects them if we aren't in and out of there constantly all day. So it's a little trick I learned a long time ago from a grower. I'm always happy to share that one.
Yeah, that's a great trick.
Yeah, and it works good for like seeding too. Like if you're not going to be in there and you're trying to germinate some seeds, it works good to keep it moist, the soil moist. So then 3 weeks about it takes for some for the cuttings to root. Meanwhile, the mother plants are still growing. They're still being fertilized. We'll take another round of cuttings in March to make sure that we have enough trays for our production and for our orders. And then April, they usually ship out like the second week to third week of April, because it's usually just too cold, because we don't want to ship when it's freezing, to your state. The temperatures to be warm and safe for shipping. So we'll ship in April. We'll remove all of our mother plants out of the greenhouse, set them outside. Then we have all of our stock, our new rooted cuttings that will go in the greenhouse. So wherever the anemones and ranunculus are, they will go in after they're done in June. They'll grow, we'll fertilize, we'll pinch, we'll keep trimming them so they're nice and bushy. We stop pinching them July 4th, first week of July. That's how I remember it. And then they just continue to grow. And then we net them, we weed them, we care for them. And then by September, they're ready to bloom. And we've got tons of mums that are going to carry us through November, which is such a good feeling to have flowers and the money stream, because we need to keep that cash flow going. And it's such a good feeling to go into September with a house full of mums ready to bloom in the fall.
Yeah, I mean, that's a really important time frame to cover for local growers. So yeah, I can see how that's important. Do you know why chrysanthemums aren't propagated by seed, right? I mean, you're never going to see chrysanthemum seed.
Right. And as far as I know, so I think that it would take a really long time to get the seeds from the plant, because it's in the fall and we don't have pollinators necessarily in our high tunnels, and that's not what we're doing. But I can see that it would take a really, really long time to get a viable seed from a mom. Does that make sense? Like, the season is just not necessary for us. It's just not necessarily good to produce a mum seed. But I do know that that's propagating mums from seed is, I believe, how they get new varieties of mums. They'll cross-pollinate them. And I know a lot of growers are working on that out of the country, and I see different ones coming through, and it's really cool. I think that whole breeding program is amazing, but that's why we do a direct clone with the rooted cutting from the mother plant.
Mm-hmm.
Does that
Yeah.
make
Okay.
sense?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I was just wondering. I know that nobody grows mums from seed, and I just didn't. I was
No.
curious. Didn't know why. And so, do you think most people are buying the cuttings from you and then growing them and like making their own cuttings to get more plants? Like you were saying, since you can make a cutting out of each node. So like instead of like buying seeds, people are buying your cuttings and probably propagating them. Okay, I mean that's what I imagine, but I don't know. So yeah, that's okay.
Sure.
That's what I wanted to ask. Okay.
Yeah, I would think so. Yeah, I mean, that's what I do. I buy 4 or 8, new mums, of one variety, maybe even 2 if that's what the grower offers. And then I can make new cuttings. I can make easily 50 cuttings from 2 mum plants in a season. If you work at it, you can totally do that, which I've done. And they're not difficult, they just take time. They take some effort to get the roots developed on the cuttings. That's all it is. And you can take cuttings in June. You get your plants, they grow. You can still take cuttings in June, and that's where when you pinch them, you pinch off, and what are you going to do? You're going to throw that in the compost, make some more plants, right? And then you have them, and then they're ready to go in, plant them in July, and they're totally fine. So you can increase your mum production quickly if that's what you choose to do. I have a lot of customers that are home gardeners and they just want to have them in their garden, which that's okay too.
Okay, so that's a great strategy to be doing, more almost like on a rolling basis as you're pruning throughout the season. Well, I know some people, or at least I've heard some people disbud their mums to get fewer, larger flowers. I mean, it's a technique I think our audience is going to be familiar with, and I know it's like a trade-off. Is you can either do some disbudding and get fewer, larger flowers, or you can leave the plants natural and have more smaller blooms. In fact, the article that we'll share about this, I think Rebecca talks about disbudding some and then just letting some go. So that she has some mums that have been disbudded that become bigger and almost more like focal flowers or something, and then some that are just smaller, and it gives her some variety to choose from. Do you recommend to make a recommendation on disbudding, or is it kind of like that? Is it choose your own adventure whether you want fewer bigger blooms or more smaller blooms?
Right. Yeah, I would agree. So we do not disbud. Okay.
Okay.
And the reason we don't, and this is purely our preference, is because when it would be time to start disbudding on the plants, we are in August. We are full tilt out in the field making bouquets, and frankly, we just don't have enough time. So I'm not going to put more time and energy than I have to into this crop, only because it's a year-round crop for us with the rooted cuttings and the production. So we don't. And for us, we want one stem in our bouquets for market to make an impact. So we want a lot of flowers on that one stem. So we grow most of our mums as a spray. And even the varieties that are large, they're still, without disbudding, they're still going to be 4 and 5 inch flower. And you're going to have multiple of those on one stem. That's a lot in a bouquet. So
That's a big flower, yeah.
Yeah, and could you imagine if it's disbudded? It's going to be 7 inches. Like that's a focal flower. That's huge. But that's not what our customers. We're not trying to attract florists with our mums. We're not showing our mums at competition. So that's where I think you would disbud your mums. And for us, it works great to have that nice spray, and we can put in 3 mum stems into a bouquet with some eucalyptus or dusty miller, and it's going to be full, and the customer is going to really enjoy what is in that bouquet.
Yeah. Okay, well, cool. So it sounds like disbudding is optional. So it sounds like you don't do it for your production, but if people did want a particular variety to be bigger, I guess that's an option for them. If they want to, but just put a little more labor into it, like everything else. So, okay. So I know you sell rooted cuttings. Is there such thing as an unrooted cutting, and are there advantages to the rooted cuttings?
Sure. I know several farms that do sell unrooted cuttings, and to farms, and they're a little cheaper, right? They're not as expensive because we're just going in and we're cutting them off of the mother plant. We're not having to care for them. They get cut off, I believe they get cut off and shipped that same day. So you just have to be prepared when your unrooted cuttings come to your farm that you're ready to stick them in the medium and get them ready to grow, because you want the tissue culture to be live and active. You don't want to let it, wilt and get, because then they wouldn't revive very well, I don't think. I've not tried this, but I do see that if you are a high volume farm and you can get your hands on some unrooted cuttings, it could be quite beneficial, and it's a little better, cost. You wouldn't have to put that much in it, because our rooted cuttings, they're expensive, but they're expensive because we put a lot of care and effort into making that plant for you.
Right. And that puts the grower a couple weeks ahead as well, right? So it's like, I guess, like everything else, it's a trade-off. You can get unrooted cuttings and do the labor yourself of rooting them, or you could buy them from you and skip that whole few weeks or whatever the time frame is, and they can live in your greenhouse. So, okay, thank you. I was just want to make sure unrooted cuttings were even a thing, and but I guess that's the difference. And now let's take a minute to hear from our sponsors. It's with their generous support that we can bring you the podcast for free.
Are you ready to make 2026 your most productive growing season yet? Hi, I'm Emily from Tillmore, and we're here to help you get there.
And I'm Aaron. At Tillmore, we offer practical tools for every scale. Planting to cultivation, soil amendments, harvest tools, and now even bird control. We can be your one-stop shop for all your vegetable and flower growing solutions.
And if you're not sure what's right for your farm, we offer free consultations to help dial in weed control and overall workflow.
One unit growers are especially excited about is the Super E, our electric cultivating tractor. It's quiet, powerful, and makes precision weeding a whole lot easier.
We're also proud to bring TerraTech's full catalog of high-quality tools to growers across the U.S.
At the end of the day, we care about helping farmers succeed and stay profitable heading into the new year.
Learn more and book your free consultation at tillmore.com.
Hey, it's Lindsay from Grown By. There are a lot of farm sales platforms out there, but there's only one that's cooperatively owned by farmers. And that's Grown By, your all-in-one solution to simplify farm sales. I'm proud and excited to share 2 new features now available on top of the tools you already know and love. Number 1, our customizable CSA box builder. It allows your customers to simply say what they'd like in their share, and Grown By matches their preferences with your weekly harvest. Number 2, our new wholesale-only marketplace. Developed with the Culinary Institute of America, it makes your life easier with a dedicated shop for your wholesale customers. No more texting those chefs. Combining retail and wholesale inventories and records. And, drumroll, automatic payments on due dates. No more chasing down late payments. These new features sit alongside our popular online sales and traditional subscription CSA tools, making it easier than ever to manage your farm's business. As you start to get ready for next season, we'd love to hear from you and see if our cooperative can be a partner in growing your farm. Visit us at grownby.com. That's GROWNBY.com.
And now, back to the show. A lot of flower growers are going to be familiar with starting from plugs. Are there any differences in the way that you would want to handle rooted chrysanthemum cuttings from other plug-started crops that growers might be familiar with?
Sure. So our mums, when you receive them, some are going to have soil on them like we talked about, and other states are going to be bare root. You want to pot them up. We suggest putting them in a 3-inch or to 4-inch pot immediately. That's going to give them enough time and room. It's going to give their roots room to start to grow in that pot. And then if you need to leave it in there for a month or 2, it's totally fine, until you want to put it out in your high tunnel or in the ground, wherever you want it. Now, the ones that come with soil, totally fine. The bare root ones, you got to plant them right away. You got to know, we send an email out that your order has been shipped, and you got to be prepared for it.
So be ready.
Be ready for your baby plants coming because they're traveling a long way. And we overnight them. So all the unrooted cuttings are overnighted so they get to you as fast. So a lot of them is like Oregon, Washington, California. We're in Pennsylvania. That's a long way to go for a baby little plant, right? So, and we protect them as best we can, but you need to get them again in a 3-inch pot, 4-inch pot immediately. And it's gonna take those plants a day or two to rehydrate, to settle in. They might not look amazing when you get them, because I get it all the time. I get the emails, hey, this plant looks dead, blah, 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 blah. It's not dead, I promise you.
It wants to live.
They want to live. And then I get an email back a day or so later. Oh, hey, yeah, I gave it some water. It's alive now. Yes, perfect. You want to treat them just like you would any other plant. And then let them grow, give them fertilizer, let them grow out in your 3 to 4-inch pot. But I would say not to put them directly in the ground. You got to baby them a little bit because they're babies. They're tiny little plants. You know, I mean, they're not tiny, but they're fresh plants. They don't have the root structure to go directly in the ground. They need at least a month to get acclimated to your location, to wherever you are, you know, because right now when they ship, they've been in a warm space without wind, without the elements. They need to, and they just went on a long journey, so they need to be cared for.
Yeah, that makes sense. What about the planting and growing cycle? Do you have any tips for growers for how to succeed with chrysanthemums? Like, do you have any tips or tricks, or what do you wish you could tell people who buy your rooted cuttings for how to get the most out of them?
Yeah. So like I've said, they have a will to live. You got to just pay attention to them a little bit. You can put them in the ground, give them adequate water, adequate fertilizer. These plants are going to get big. So you're going to want to pinch them at least twice before the 4th of July. Once is fine too. You want to give them a good support. We use the Hortonova, I hate this stuff, the plastic netting.
Yeah, the white netting.
It's not my favorite, but it works. And we have it nice and tight. And we put every 4 feet a stake because they can get really top heavy and they'll fall over. So you just want to keep pulling that up. If you're just doing it on a small scale, you can use like a tomato cage. You can set a post and tie it to it. You just need to give it some support if you want nice straight stems. If you don't, they're going to wander through your garden and just look really cool and lay on the ground, which I've done too. And it's really neat to see when they all intertwine in a garden. So you don't have to support them, but if you're growing them for production, you really, really need to give them support.
Yeah, that's the downside of those nice long stems, right? Is you gotta.
Yes.
They're great, but you gotta support. You gotta support them if you want them to stay straight.
Yeah, because working with a crooked stem and putting it in a bouquet, it's not fun. It's not fun. I've been there. I've done that. It's not fun. And then another thing is if you're growing varieties that are late bloomers, you're gonna have to give them protection if you are not in the South. Like if you're down in like South Carolina, you wouldn't have to give them protection, but I think anything north of that, you're going to get frost. They're going to get damaged. So you just want to give them a little protection. It doesn't have to be a lot, but I do think if you're in a colder climate, like Pennsylvania and north, grow them in a high tunnel. You're going to be more successful than if you just grew them out in the field. And that's early, mid, or late bloomers. You're just going to have more success if they're in a high tunnel. And again, it doesn't have to be heated. Minimal protection, and you will have success with these. They have a will to live. And each year they get bigger. So you can keep your mother plant, right? You can dig it up, bring it inside. Just like if you grow dahlias, bring them inside. You want to keep them cool, but not frozen. And keep them like in a garage. We keep all of our dahlia tubers in our walk-in cooler for the winter. It just works out that way. I've kept my mums in there. It keeps them at a nice like 40 to 45 degree temperature. You can protect, but that's the temperature we like to keep the plants at. You don't want them actively growing. And then February, March, bring your plants out, your mother plants, pot them up, wake them up, and then you can take cuttings the next year and you can have so many more mums for your garden, for your customers. It's endless, and this is why I love them, because you can just keep going and keep going with them.
Cool. Okay, so it sounds like they can get pretty cold, but is there a, like, I'm trying to think, yeah, for people in northern areas, like, I mean, there must be some temperature below which they would actually freeze, or can they freeze and bounce back and be okay?
As far as I know, they can freeze a little bit, but I've never tried it. I've never tried to overwinter them outside. I'm actually working with our local garden club. I gave them a ton of mum cuttings that I had extra, and I said, ladies, just do what you want with them. Let me know if you cared for them. Let me know if you didn't. Let me know if they survived. The one woman emailed me and she said a chipmunk came and ate all of them. She was very disappointed. And then they grew back because the roots were so good. They grew back and bloomed, even though the chipmunk just pinched them for her and she didn't know. But she didn't do anything with them and they grew. So I want to see how locally the ladies do with overwintering the mums, because you can overwinter them. You can put like leaves or compost on them to give their roots protection from the cold. I don't know how far north. And see, this is where I think a lot of our information has been lost because the chrysanthemum industry went away in a big way. And then we had Minnesota mums. They had the mums that were very hardy for Minnesota. I mean, they get cold there, right? But they're, I believe, no longer in business and someone else has bought them. So I don't know, I don't know if they're advertising them as hardy mums. And I think there's a lot of new growers that we're trying to figure out where our mums can go, how far north they can go, and how cold they can get and still survive. And I think collectively we're going to get there in a few years, but right now there's been so much information that has been lost on this crop, which is a shame.
It is, especially, I mean, for local growers, it's such a great crop for local growers, but sounds like we're figuring it out again. So yeah, and I guess it's probably one of those things that varies somewhat, as far as, some people don't get that cold but have like big cold snaps, how like a really rapid change of temperature, even if it doesn't get that cold, rapid changes can be really hard on plants. And like cold wind, I think that's like I've noticed plants can survive a lot of times, like you said, in an unheated tunnel, whereas I think it's just like that drying cold wind, it's almost like freeze drying, would die under the same temperatures outside. So I guess suffice it to say they're pretty hardy, and people just can figure out how much they can survive in their own conditions and probably need a little protection.
Yeah, and I think that goes along with anything in farming, right? The farm across the street has a different climate than me over here on our side. And I know that sounds silly because you would just be across the street, but it's true. I've seen it rain across the street and not rain at my house. I mean, it's just the way it is. So I think that's the part of farming that I do enjoy. It's the trial and error and learning what can be successful here in our area and what isn't. And maybe if it's not worth growing, and what is successful, we're going to focus on that.
Yeah. I believe you. I mean, that's one of the things that keeps farming interesting for me, is that I feel like so many of the big questions in agriculture the answer is it depends. Like, it depends on what your soil is, what your climate is, what crop you're growing, which is a challenge in a way. So for trying to do a magazine and podcast with answers, but that's also, one of the fun things that I get to talk to people like you and hear about what works for you in your particular circumstances, and other growers can extrapolate from that and learn from that. So, okay. What about harvest stage and post-harvest tips? Clearly, you cut a lot of mums. I've heard that one of the advantages of a mums is that they can keep for a long time when handled properly. So, do you agree with that? And what's the harvest stage and post-harvest tips? Like, how do you handle them?
Yeah, so the one amazing thing about why we grow the mums is because they're a fantastic cut flower, right? They're fantastic. They last a long time, which is what we want for our customer. We want our customer to have a long-lasting flower that they get to enjoy, and especially at the end of the season, because they're going to remember that. When you send out your email in the spring and say, hey, we have flowers, they're going to be like, oh my gosh, that's right. The last bouquet I had from them lasted 2 weeks. I mean, come on, talk about ending on a high note, right? So that's what I love about these mums. They last a long time. I've held mums in a cooler for 3 weeks and still had 2 weeks worth of enjoyment in my home in the vase. I mean, talk about a good cut flower. So yes, that's why people have grown them for years. As cut flowers, they're long lasting. They produce beautiful long stems. And then when we're harvesting them, I like to harvest them when they're about halfway to 3/4 way open, because they will open a little bit. So 3/4 of the bloom. And so you're still gonna see they open up and they keep opening up. The blooms, some of the blooms were really big, fluffy, incurve and regular incurve flowers. The mums, they have a ton of petals. So they're just going to keep opening. They're just going to keep going. And they're really big and fluffy. So we want to cut them at the stage where we can still ship them when they're not going to get damaged. That's what we're concerned about, because even though we're shipping to Pittsburgh, they're not going in the air, they're not being mailed that way, but we're still shipping, and you have to think people are going to touch these. So in a pick up the bouquet, we want to make sure they're at a stage where even if they might get damaged, the outside petals might get damaged a little bit, there's still going to be enough that's going to open up. So I always say half to 3/4 of the bloom is going to be open before you cut it. And they're just going to keep opening up. And then again, you want to strip all the leaves off. We strip at least 3/4 of the leaves off, because that's where the mold and that's where the disease, when in the bucket, is going to happen, right? In the cooler. The leaves are what's going to make it gross. And we do harvest into hydrating solution. So we get a nice hydration on them and they get nice and turgid in the cooler. We don't have a problem with keeping our flowers in the hydrating solution. I know some farms only put it in for like an hour or two and then pull the flowers out. Here with our water, we've never had an issue with them. So we just leave it in. And then when they go into the bouquets, all the bouquet buckets get a chlorine tablet and a tea bag at the grocery store. So that again is going to keep the bacteria down in the water, and a slow release food packet in the water for the bouquets to keep going at the grocery store. So that's how we handle all of our post-harvest.
Which part of that is the tea bag?
Okay, so the tea bag is the final when it's going to the grocery store. Every bucket of bouquets gets a tea bag, which is slow release flower food. So the flowers can sit on the floor at the grocery store, say a week. Hopefully not, they're gone in a few days or that day. But they can sit there in the water and still get the food released to them so they can still stay, look really good. And then the chlorine tablet is in that water as well to keep the bacteria down.
Okay. Did you say you use chrysal when you first harvest them? So the tea bag, they go into chrysal when you harvest, and then the tea bag is the tea bag chrysal or something similar to that? Like you're putting that in so they stay strong at the grocery store.
Yes. Yeah, that's the final leg. And yeah, we get it all from the chrysal company, and it's great.
Okay.
Yep.
Cool. Thanks. Okay, so I think you said you have something like 50 varieties of mums, but you must have favorites in there. Can you tell us about some of your favorite or notable varieties that you have?
Sure. And it's funny, I get asked this all the time, what's your favorite flower, right? And my answer is the one that's blooming right now.
I know what you mean. Sometimes it's I don't know, maybe you have a clear favorite, but they're all so beautiful. It's also, sometimes it's hard to have a favorite. It's
right. But I do have some favorite mums, and and I say that jokingly because I just look at a flower and I'm like, oh, this one's blooming. It's amazing. I love it right now, and then it might change tomorrow. But I do have some favorites, and I have them separated in the early blooming to mid and late blooming. And I wrote them down so I didn't forget them. So for early blooming, I prefer the prom queen. Prom queen is always the earliest blooming mum on our farm. So it gets mixed in actually with our field flowers. It blooms about 2 weeks before our first frost. So we're going to that's the beginning of the fall transition to the mums, is this prom queen. It's great. It's a lovely pink anemone style mum. And It's such a soft pink. You notice it in the vibrant oranges and yellows and reds that fall is. It's a nice complement to those if you're looking for a softer flower for that time of year. I also like Purple Light. Again, it's another anemone style, and it stays on the plant a really long time. So even if you don't harvest it in the early stages, it can be harvested even if it's been blooming for 2 and 3 weeks. It's beautiful. I love that one.
Wow, that's amazing hold time.
Yeah, on the plant. And because they just keep developing their flower, they just keep getting better. Paint Box is also a great early blooming one. It's a nice red, orange, and it's bigger to be a nice focal flower, which we like for our bouquets. And then also we like Lab Love and Cranberry Wine for the early ones. And these are nice because they're nice sprays. They have a nice spray on each stem. They produce a ton off of each plant, so they're very productive. We like those. We like very productive plants because if we have the plants in our high tunnel, those high tunnels, right? That's expensive real estate. We want to grow things that are really productive, and we're going to get the most out of each square foot. So then we're going to move into the mid-season mums, and this is blooming in October, right? So Obsession, I love this mum. This mum is exactly what the name is. I'm obsessed with Obsession. It's a beautiful light lavender, vibrant light. It's like a cross between a pink and a lavender, and it's a nice spray. It's lovely. It works beautifully. It has nice strong stems, perfect for mixed bouquets, perfect for arrangements or, selling to florists. It's lovely. Moonbeam is a nice white, creamy white. I call it a winter white. It's a pon style. So it's a nice spray, and it grows really tall, very vigorous, nice strong stems on that one too. Manchetta Sunset is your traditional vibrant red for the fall season with a nice yellow bright center. Perfect for bouquets, very productive. This plant, it's super productive. I love it. Then we have Derek Birkinshaw is a nice big one. Oh, Derek, that's what we call it. It's so funny. When we're in the greenhouse, we spend a lot of time with these plants. We come up with stories because they all have names. My team, it's hilarious. They're like, well, today, Judith Baker and Derek Birkinshaw, it's hilarious.
They do have kind of funny names,
Yeah.
like some of them.
They do, but we make, we spend a lot of time with them, so we say we get to know them. But Derek is a vibe, like the brightest yellow that you're ever going to see on a mum. It kind of hurts your eyes a little bit when you look at it, but it's so beautiful. It's such a big and luscious bloom. Again, we don't disbud, and the blooms are still 5 inches across, and there's multiple on one stem. It's a great one. So if you're looking for a vibrant mum for that time of year, it's great. Bronze Fleece, Pink Fleece. Now these two are really cool because they are cascading mums, but we grow them as traditional upright mums. And they're really cool. They're nice, small. They're like your 1 to 2 inch size bloom of the mum, but they're a spray, and they like glitter and dance in the bouquet, and it's really cool. So like when you have your bouquet of mums on the table and you bump the table, they move, so it draws your attention to something else in the bouquet. And that's the part of what I like. You want to have the nice focal flowers, but in our market with bouquet making, we need to have all the different textures and styles, not just a focal flower. And those two, the Bronze Fleece and Pink Fleece, really do add that. Jefferson Park, I already talked about. It's a great one. It's a nice big lavender one, also a focal flower. But then there's Kelvin Mandarin and Kelvin Tattoo. These also bloom in the October. They are great because they're super sturdy, a nice spray, pon style mums, perfect for bouquets. Again, when I say they're perfect for bouquets, they're perfect for any florist industry. They're perfect for arrangements, weddings, anything. So these are all great cut flowers. Late season, the last blooming mum that we carry is Daybreak. Daybreak will bloom in November. This is a perfect pumpkin orange colored mum. It's nice and big, perfect for those Thanksgiving arrangements. And that's really nice. Judith Baker is a quill style mum, and it's a big mum. Again, we don't disbud, and it's still big. And the quilled style petals are really cool because you don't see that everywhere. And it just levels up your bouquets and levels up your flowers by having something interesting. A mocha, also a very popular one. Satin ribbon is really cool. It's got like fluted and spiky flower, like the petals in it. It's really wild and whimsical. I think it's in its own class. It doesn't have it's not classified. And Seton's du jour is also a really cool one. It's like a cafe au lait dahlia. So if you're looking for something in a little lighter palette with pinks and creams, that's the one you're going to want if you don't want the traditional like bright oranges and reds and typical colors for the fall. And that's what I try to have. I try to have enough variety for our customers to buy for color palettes if they are growing, specifically for florists, and they might not need those bright, bold colors. Or if they're doing farmers markets, they need the bright, bold colors to attract the customers. So I've been there, I've done it all. So I know what, each one's want. And then we do have the spider mums. They're amazing. They're a little bit more difficult to keep warm, but a lot of them bloom in October, so the spider mums are really cool, and those will again just level up your bouquets.
Okay, cool. Yeah, and that's one of the things that I enjoyed looking at the range you have. They're so different, or I mean, there's just such a range of shapes and colors and everything. So I would urge people to get in there, check them out on your website, because they're so interesting and beautiful. Okay, so what are the other crops that you have growing late that you can combine with mums for late season arrangements? And like, you can go into this as much as you want. I'm just thinking like most people are going to, if they're making bouquets or any kind of arrangements, are going to want something to go with. So what are you combining with mums late in the season?
Sure. Yeah, that's a great question. And it definitely takes a lot of planning to have those crops also available with these mums. And I've done a lot of trial and error over the years to get to a point where we can still continue to sell to our grocery stores late in November and in October with other flowers. Because I mean, a bouquet of mums is, yes, it's beautiful, but for our market, like you said, we need other things to go with it. So we will do marigolds, celosia, and those two will be good until we get a super hard super hard freeze, because even in the high tunnel unprotected, they'll be fine and they'll bloom, and we'll get a nice crop at least to the end of October, we'll say. So remember, we had our first frost like the first week of October, and now we've extended it all the way to the end of October with marigolds and celosia. We also will have a row of eucalyptus ready to go. We won't cut our eucalyptus until our frost. We will not touch it, and those are specifically only for the fall bouquets. So we don't touch our eucalyptus until then. Cabbage is amazing because it can be in an unheated hoop house. You can grow it outside even if you want, and it's just going to get better as it gets cold, right? Like the flowering cabbage and the flowering kale, it's the colors are going to come out as it gets cold, and that with the mums and the other flowers, it's so unique. You don't see it. That's the great thing about the local flowers is they're so unique, and you're not going to see all of this stuff just from the florist or just from the regular grocery store stand. That's how we try to get our stuff to stand out, right? Again, the focal scoop, scabiosa, I like that. We harvest on it all year, but it's already in our high tunnel. So it's still producing and it likes the cold weather, and then it starts to give us a nice flush. And then the Salvia leucantha, it doesn't bloom for us out in the field, but if we have it inside, we have about a half a row of it. And when I say a half a row, that's about 40 feet. That will be enough to give us enough Salvia leucantha for all of our bouquets that we need and through October. Then once it gets to November, we're relying on the cabbage, Dusty Miller, and the eucalyptus to mix in with the mums.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Well, that's great. That gives people some ideas of what they can plant along with the mums to keep the bouquets going strong till the end of the season. Well, I feel like you've been really generous with your time and information. That's what I had for you as far as questions about mums in particular. And I know you also do the dahlia tubers and the cut flowers and so much other stuff. So I wanted to give you an opportunity to say if there's anything else I should have asked you or that you'd like to say before we let you go.
Sure. Yeah, there's a special project that I've been working on, and I've been thinking about this for a few years, and I finally found the time to sit down and start to do it. And it's an online class for growers from year 3 to 5 and even beyond. But it's about how to level up your growing, how to advance your growing. And it's called Bouquet Mastery: How to Plan, Grow, and create over 10,000 bouquets a season without burnout, because that's the big thing. We don't want to get burned out. And when I started doing grocery store work, we were growing a lot of flowers, but I was only making like 50, bouquets a week, right? And then you go from that to like 10,000 or more a season. That's completely different. So this course is how we scaled up to what we are, our production now, the tools we've had, managing a team, because before I didn't have a team. It was just my family and I. So managing a team, the systems we've put into place, how we harvest 15,000 stems a week and get them to the grocery stores, make a 1 minute or less bouquet and repeat for weeks. So I'm really excited about that, and I have a wait list. If you want to join the wait list for that, I'm hoping to get this course out within the new year, the beginning of the new year. And I'm really excited because I think it's going to help a lot of people just level up and scale up. And it's not real scientific, because to me, that puts me off. We're in a scientific, it can be very scientific field, which, don't get me wrong, we need, but a lot of times it's over my head. And this is very practical. It's going to be practical. You're going to have to do some work in it, for your farm, but we need advanced education in our industry, I think, and this is headed in that direction. And this is what I would have wanted to know when I was starting and needed resources to sell that many bouquets a week in a season. So I'm really excited about that.
Yeah. Well, that sounds like it's going to be a great resource, because I think there is, going from, say, like 1,000 bouquets to 10,000 bouquets, it can be really hard to figure out what the stages are. And they can be very awkward, I feel like as like how to get from 1 to 10,000, let's say. Like that process of scaling up is not always easy to see how you get from point A to point B. And I think you're right. There's a lot more beginning resources for flower growers right now than the intermediate and advanced. So that sounds like it will be a great resource. And that's going to come out in 2026?
Yes. Yeah, I've been working on it in 2025 and this year, and I've put a lot of energy into it. So I'm at the point where I'm gonna start recording and getting everything all set up. It's been a labor of love, because I want to make sure it's worth it, and I want to make sure people really get value out of it. And it's something that I want it to be that what I wanted, and all the things that I wanted when I was scaling up, and what I've learned, and how to do these systems, and how to cut down time, and how to do all your seeding in a morning for all your transplants. Like, with the right equipment, you can do it, so that's what I'm really excited to share.
Yeah, well, it sounds like it's going to be a great resource, because like you said, you've done it, you've scaled that, and so you know what it takes. So where can people get on the waiting list at your website, or if people are interested, where would they find more information?
So right now I have 2 free downloads on our website under growing tips, and you can go in there and you download those. And then there's the link right now is just at the end of those to sign up for the waiting list, but I am going to put a link on the website right underneath of those to sign up for the course, because I've done it very slowly and introduced, just kind of feeling the waters out and seeing how the response is. And so far the response has been really good. So,
well, I guess I should also ask, where can people find you online, or social media, or wherever you want people to look you up?
Sure. Yeah. So first and foremost, we have a website, goosecreekgardens.com, and you can join our mailing list. I send a weekly newsletter. I try to send one every week. Sometimes we get busy and life happens, but I always keep our subscribers up to date and what's going on, what flowers we're going to have, classes we might have on farm. This year we didn't do it, but last year we did a Dahlia You Pick, and it was really successful. So we have all the, the news of the newsletter. every week out there, and I tell you a little behind the scenes of what's going on the farm, because there's always funny stories. So we have that. And then we are also on Instagram, Facebook, Pinterest, and it's all under Goose Creek Gardens. And I'm on there, and you can always say hi. And we try to post all the time to let you know what's going on. And it's just, I really like to share our farm with our customers because there's so much to learn, and not everybody lives on a farm. And I think it's really special that we do, and that I can share it with so many people every single day, every single week. And I just think it's really important to get us out there.
Yeah, absolutely. It's great that you do that, because I think we can get used to like, oh, that's just what the field looks like this time of year. But I mean, it's like less than 1% of the population that farms anymore, right? So you got to think like most people, it's actually going to be really interesting, or like, they're not going to have your daily view. So that's cool that you're doing that. So, okay, well, great. Well, now people know where they can go see what's going on your farm and get a hold of you. So, well, Kate, I've really enjoyed this conversation. I think that there's been a lot of really practical information, and I've enjoyed hearing about the chrysanthemums. Actually, I'm excited now. Actually, I think I'm going to give it a shot. You've gotten me excited about chrysanthemums. I'm going to order some from you because I've never grown them. And I mean, like, we were mostly a vegetable farm anyway, but I feel like I've got what I need to know to give it a shot. So I'm going to get some chrysanthemums from you and give it a shot this coming year. So thank you so much for the conversation. Really enjoyed it, and I think our audience will too. And I hope you can catch a little bit of a break this winter, because I imagine it's not too long before you're pulling those mother plants out and starting making cuttings, huh?
Yep. It'll be next week, actually.
Oh, okay. Well, here we are, last week of the year. Hopefully you've had a break, I guess, at this point, and then back into it in 2026. All right. Well, thanks so much, Kate. Really appreciate it, and I enjoyed it.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I hope I inspired people to try Heirloom Mums and just keep farming and keep adding great flowers to their production line.
Yeah, I think they will. It worked on me. All right. Thanks, Kate. Thank you for joining us for this episode of the Growing for Market podcast. If you've been enjoying the show, please consider giving us a follow and a rating or a review. It really helps others find the podcast. For more tips and tricks from farmer to farmer, check out our magazine at growingformarket.com. Whether you're a commercial grower or just want to grow like one, subscribe to Growing for Market magazine for the nitty-gritty of growing, marketing, and the business of market farming. We publish 10 issues per year with articles written by experienced farmers on topics ranging from tools and techniques to farm business operations and marketing. If you've been listening to the Growing for Market podcast and haven't yet checked out Growing for Market magazine, we've made a change so you can try the magazine for free. We've added a free month to the beginning of all first-time subscriptions. Try out the digital or paper magazine for a month, and if it's not for you, cancel within 28 days and you'll never even get billed. All subscriptions get you a year of the magazine, plus 150 downloadable back issues from the last 15 years and over 1,700 archived articles. With digital subscriptions starting at just $39 a year, head on over to growingformarket.com and subscribe today to benefit from over 3 decades of writing by farmers, for farmers, in Growing for Market magazine.